Hey everyone, it's Anthony Allen Ramos. Okay, so David Yee's website, Very Good Light, aims to redefine masculinity through a beauty lens. He's also co-founded a new beauty brand called Good Light, and he's now releasing a book called Pretty Boys, which basically goes into the history of men and makeup and beauty, and it's out June 22nd. David, how are you?
I'm doing so well. Thank you so much for having me. You're extremely iconic, obviously. I love what you're wearing. I
Thank
love your
you.
background. I'm obsessed with
I wanted
everything
to,
on this call.
I had to have a little style for you because all of those things that I just said, you have got to be so busy. But the book, here we go, June 22nd. I told you I'm obsessed with it. It's so great. And basically, like, set it up for us because it's a really unique project. It basically goes through the history of the men and beauty, and I learned so much. But yeah, kind of set us up how this project came to be and what it's all about.
Yeah, I mean, I think traditionally Pretty Boy, the name was used to take away agency from someone else to make them feel less than or subhuman. And it was coined to be the ultimate of facetious terms for, another guy, mainly, cis straight men. But Pretty Boy means to me, living your truth, your authenticity, shining your light, your inner and outer beauty. The book's definition is a little more focused. I considered folks who use makeup and or cosmetics to amplify their power, whether politically or socially. And we're seeing that men and masc identifying folks have done this from the beginning of time. We're going way back to 50,000 BCE to our modern day, from guys like Bretman Rock or Patrick Starr or Bad Bunny.
I love that. And so wait, yeah, because it's like, Harry Styles we talk about, but let's go back to that because I love that I'm opening it up here. Like it is like a little bit of a history lesson. So you mentioned that like makeup and men go way back. Like what are some of those earliest examples?
Yes, I mean this really does prove that makeup and the use of cosmetics amplified everyone from all genders, and it didn't mean that you were considered feminine in these time periods. You were considered the most masculine being. We're talking about the Vikings, the greats, including Ramses, Cyrus, Alexander. I mentioned Neanderthals from 50,000 years ago, macaroni of the 1700s in Great Britain, King Louis XIV, a Mayan lord and godlike figure whose name was Ki Inch Jana Pakal. There's just so much in this book. I mean, we span history, we span the world, we span every culture, and I really do hope that there'll be a sequel, perhaps, because there's just so much more to talk about.
Let me tell you, we didn't learn that in our history books in school. So I'm glad that we're learning about it now.
Yes,
Um,
yes.
you have been very open about your more traditional upbringing and kind of your coming into your identity and sexuality. So what was it, I guess, what was it like for you, kind of growing up in a more like conservative Asian American family?
Yeah, so I come from a Korean American background, and my parents are immigrants from South Korea. And I grew up in Colorado Springs, Colorado, where I am now, coming back home. I went to school in LA, then did, a decade in New York City. But coming back home, I realized just the sacrifices that my parents made and just the beauty that they brought over from South Korea. But it was a very traditional environment. Colorado Springs is probably the most Christians per capita in the country, I think.
Hmm.
It's one kind of red city amongst kind of a state that is blue, but it's quickly changing. I think it's becoming more of a purple city. And I think that it's been very interesting seeing the Western culture meet the Eastern cultures, meets Christianity, and then kind of this new wave of progressive thinking. But, I think that with everyone who comes from a small town, we're just all trying to survive. We're all just trying to figure things out. And somehow we do. And I think that's from our chosen families. That's from our families who are biological, who stand with us. But I think that it's a lifelong process to find self-love and self-actualization.
Well, that's wonderful to hear too. As we are in Pride Month, thinking about that, obviously chosen family is so important, and we talk about that so much, on flat with our platforms and GLAAD, and I think that's so important. But when you know, coming out, and maybe it was, when the first time you tried makeup, what was your family's reaction? Like, were they supportive? Did they question it? Did it take some time? What was all that
I think there's some fear that
like?
comes from immigrant families, right? There's fear of repercussions. There's fear of what will the people at church say. There's
Mhm.
fear of you, Mimi, being beaten on the streets or being targeted for who you are, what you look like. The first time I wore makeup was probably a couple of years ago, and I was just like, I'm expressing myself. And I love makeup. I want to explore this, and I think that there was this level of fear, like, why is a guy wearing makeup? Like, is this
Mhm.
acceptable? And that's why I wanted to selfishly write a book like Pretty Boys, because I wanted to explain to the world that this is not new, that kings and assassins, like Korean assassins named Hwarang from the 600s, they wore makeup as a spiritual practice and they were snatched, but they also sliced people's heads off. They're very fierce. And I wanted to prove a point that throughout the history of time to now, men from all gender identities, men who came from different sexual orientations, they all empower themselves through cosmetics, and it was a form of self-love and self-preservation. And selfishly, I needed this book because I was like, everyone who probably has a family member who just doesn't understand their eyeshadow or their use of makeup needs to read this, and I hope that it will set them free, or actually it'll also help them with their arguments with their parents.
There it is right there, everyone. June 22nd. I remember the first time I put makeup cosmetics, it was a bronzer
Ooh, very
because
subtle.
very subtle. And I remember very specifically, this is hilarious. I can't remember where she was going, but there was this image of Angelina Jolie in this like white, like super fierce suit, but she was like super tan. And I was like, I want to be super tan too. And that was like my first like little foray into makeup. And it was a nice Clinique bronzer that I got back in the day.
Ooh, Clinique. Okay. Wait, where did you grow up?
In LA. Yeah.
Okay, you grew up
So
in LA.
but I also think, even for me, I was a little nervous because I was still living at home and I was like, are my parents gonna like wonder like why am I, doing cosmetics? And but I think also what the book does a really good job of, it highlights some of the people of today. Like you mentioned Bad Bunny, for example. So when
Mhm.
we see someone like Harry Styles or Bad Bunny embracing makeup, maybe dressing even what's traditionally conceived more femininely, what does that mean for, perception and pop culture and in society in general, do you think?
I think it means that we are embracing a more expansive definition of masculinity. No longer is it siloed into this claustrophobic box. Men can be whoever they want to be. And in our nascent selves, we beautified, right? In the animal kingdom, humans are part of the animal kingdom. Male species beautify, right? Peacocks to birds to many species around the globe. And I think that innately, that's just in us. It's just because of societal conditioning, especially in the 1900s, wartime colonization, westernization, and we delve into that in the book. It's only because of that there's a shift in men and how we think of masculinity and how we're supposed to perform in these gender binary roles. But I think that these new stars like Harry Styles, Timothy Chalamet, to BTS, and yes, Bad Bunny, they are embracing their innate selves and their innate states. And that is to be pretty and to beautify and to understand that everyone has masculinity and divine femininity within them. And it's this yin and yang that creates a very whole person.
I love that. Um, I also want to point out, everyone, that not only is this a wonderful history book, there are 29 guides and how-tos. So tell
Yes.
me a little bit about those because I love that, just because it's like a really good thing. Just because I'm a gay man doesn't mean I know how to do everything. So this is good. Like, I need to learn. So what are some of the tips and tricks that are in this book that people can pick up?
Thank you so much for bringing that up because there are also guides. This is a guidebook, a prescriptive book as well for folks who want to embrace their outer beauty. We have some makeup tips from stars like Sir John, who obviously is known for working with Beyonce. Speaking of Beyonce, we have my friend Rita Hazan, who colors
Yes.
Beyonce's hair. We have folks like Daniel Martin, who is now an ambassador at Tatcha and worked with Meghan Markle and Priyanka Chopra. Gaga, and he gives us some great makeup tips, to my friend David Lopez, who kind of he treads the line between masculine and feminine on his platforms, and he is a wig master, and he obviously is great at hair. He does Ashley Graham, and so there's so many of these great voices who are professionals in the beauty industry, giving their takes on beauty. And it's not just makeup and hair, it's also skincare. We talked to someone named Jumi Song who gives facials to Lady Gaga. And so it's kind of like, okay, how do I wash my face? What's the first step in doing an eyeliner? How is it that I find my first wig? What's the difference between a synthetic wig and a real wig? And how do I wash it? So we really break it down for readers to empower them and to give them those skills that perhaps they didn't learn in their households.
I love that. And I think, during Pride and actually every week, we're at GLAAD, we are very much, advocating for self-care these days. You have to be good to yourself.
Yes.
It's so, actually, that's a good segue. So now you have Good Light is basically your own line
Mhm.
of cosmetics and inclusive products, but it has a very specific mission, which is kind of a similar mission as the book. Tell me about Good Light.
Good Light is all about gender inclusivity. And I know that there are a lot of brands that say genderless brands, and that's cool. But I also feel like that erases people's identities that they've fought for such a long time. And to a lot of folks, their gender identity is everything. This is what they left home for. This is what they're fighting for. And so we want to be a gender inclusive brand that says if you're non-binary, if you go by he, she, they, them, you belong, and you belong to this conversation. And I've never seen a beauty brand kind of stand behind that. And it was so important to me as a creator, as a person in this industry, to see
Mhm.
myself and to be able to represent folks from all walks of lives, because I know what it feels like to be erased. I've never saw an Asian American, a Korean American person in the beauty industry when I was growing up, and I was like, I want every single person to be welcomed into this conversation. It's so important that I'm having a conversation with you and GLAAD right now, because GLAAD is kind of what stemmed all of this and spurred all this, and was the impetus to start Very Good Light. So when I was at Mashable in 2015, I did a very transformative story on 11 trans teenagers who came out to the world. And this was kind of the first time that people were talking about trans teens. And we had someone who was 5 years old actually come out to the world for the first time. And I thought that was so powerful. Styled by Nicola Formichetti, who is my dear friend Lady Gaga stylist, as you know. And that, to me, I was like, as a journalist, I've never felt as if I could really uplift people and empower them to tell their own stories. And not only that, it was so confirming that I was nominated for my first GLAAD award. And that to me was a signifier. I was like, I want to do this all the time. I want to uplift all people, all of my communities, and all communities around the world. But it was really kind of this light bulb moment when I was like, okay, I think the universe is telling me to write about identity through a beauty lens. And that's when I left and launched Very Good Light in 2016. And it all really has to do because of GLAAD.
Oh my goodness, I love that. Thank you for sharing that. And that's such a wonderful story to hear because yeah, I mean, you really have made it your career now and your priority just to have these conversations, inspire people to want to be who they want to be and to kind of just break down these barriers when it comes to gender and beauty and beyond. You know, with this book, there it is, everyone. I love. And by the way, great job on the artwork. I think. I mean, this and look, there's a mirror. Everyone, it's so good.
Paul Tuller, shout out. Paul Tuller, he is our artist extraordinaire, did everything. And the book was also designed by artists in HM under HMH. And so we put a lot of care into this. And it's metallic, as you can see on the cover, fully illustrated. And we're so proud. It's the most stunning book that I've ever seen. And it happens to be mine. And it's so weird.
I so agree, and it's so important because let's be real. Like if you're gonna pick it up, it's got to look good and it's got to be.
Yes.
What do you
Yes.
want people to take away from this book? What's the message? What do you hope that maybe someone at the bookstore that just stumbles upon this pretty cover and picks it up and then buys it? What's the hope there?
Thank you for that question. I think that for me, anyways, selfishly, I want everyone to know that pretty is pretty powerful. And this isn't just a vanity thing. This isn't just an exterior, I have a snatched look or I beat my face. This is about embracing who you are, your inner pretty and your history, your ancestors, and the power that you exude uniquely on your own. And we have a section at the tail end of the book of 10 real people talking about what pretty boy means to them. And we're talking about indigenous people to, we have a Sikh British person, we have, a Black American guy in the West Coast, and they're all talking about what pretty boy, that name, that word means to them, and kind of reclaiming that as well. And I really want everyone to see that as an example, that pretty is how you define it. And beauty is really defined by the beholder, and you are that beholder. Who's to say that you're not gorgeous? You're stunning, right? And I want everyone to know that, yes, there are examples of powerful people throughout history, but you yourself are also a part of this book, making history as a member of the Pretty Boys community.
Oh, I love that. Yes, yes, I am here for that. Do you find that, because I always think, what in pop culture, like right now, obviously drag race is
Mhm.
it, like everyone, which is so wonderful to see.
Who's your favorite
Of all
winner?
favorite, well, here I'm going to tell you, my favorite winner is not a winner, but Hall of Famer All Star. I'm a big Valentina fan, and I know it's a little controversial, but I do love some
No, I
Valentina.
love Valentina. Valentina is fierce.
I
I love
know.
Eureka.
I love Eureka. Can't wait for All Stars. Who else do I love in the history? Uh, and actually last season, I think Denali went home way too early, and I loved me some Denali, but
Me
I was
too.
very happy with Simone. But
Me too.
anyway, do
And
you
we
find? Yeah, go
And I
ahead.
bring that up because there are two drag race superstars in this book, from Kimchi to
Yes.
Plastique Tiara, who I feel like are just so fierce. And I was like, oh my gosh, I've never thought that Asian people could be uplifted in the drag community. And they're the biggest stars now. Plastic Tiara is the biggest TikTok drag star, and Kimchi has their own line. And so it's just so amazing to see representation.
Yes, and Kimora Hall loved her. Went home too soon. She was number one, but I was very happy with her look, and I think. But
Yes.
do you find that Drag Race is opening up conversation just around makeup and beauty in general within, even outside of our community? Because obviously, Drag Race has a big fandom that is straight that isn't part of our community.
For sure. I mean, I think that drag and what RuPaul was able to do was kind of normalize drag culture. I mean,
Mhm.
drag culture was so transgressive throughout history, and it was trans women and also drag queens who were at the forefront of these LGBTQIA movements. But back then, drag people and gender nonconforming folks were seen as kind of nuisances in society. And in this very Christian culture that we are brought up in the West, it was considered sinful and these people were satanic. But I think that RuPaul kind of broke back the layers and was like, these people are human. They're like you and me. They have pain. They feel things that you do. And I think that's what was so transformative. It was a storytelling. I mean, if we only showed drag people but not the stories, I think that it wouldn't have much of an as much of an impact. But because there are real stories from across the world, from across the US, of American people really dressing up and showing their pain, their lived in experiences, I think it just normalized things. And it's now obviously cultural phenomenon. And I'm very, very thankful to RuPaul and all the drag queens who month after month show up on the show, and day after day on their socials are showing the world just how powerful they are.
Oh my gosh, can we get you as a guest judge? Let's make that happen.
I would love that. I would love that.
mean,
Dream come
and
true.
I love that you included that in here. But anyway, look how cute this stuff is, everyone. Look, that's Bretman Rock. Hey,
Yeah.
Bretman,
Hey,
who's so
Bretman.
here. But yeah, it's just so well done. Before I let you go, since it is Pride Month, I think Pride, especially more than ever, feels like it's just something that we need to really be in touch with and
Mhm.
recognize the importance. And I've said that, for me personally, Pride is about learning the history of the LGBTQ trailblazers who have come before us. And really, a lot of that is in here too. It's
Mhm.
history of it all. So what my question is, what does pride mean to you?
Wow. Pride to me means authenticity and truth. I'm a journalist, right? So I'm always looking for the truth. Pride to me is living your life and being who you want to be and showing the world that you are special, that you are worthy, that you are unique, but you are powerful. And I always go back to that word powerful because sometimes I don't feel powerful. And there are so many times in my life where I've felt less than or invisible. But this book and these people throughout history and who are making history today prove to me that if they can do it, then I can do it. And I can walk in their shoes because they've trailblazed these paths for me. And so I'm very, very thankful. But pride is everything. It means coming together with truth, authenticity, and community and uplifting others who have yet to find their truths.
That is so important. Uplift others. I feel like, also being Asian American, I find that there's a lot of us that, kind of in the biz, and we all really support each other and uplift each other when something good is happening.
Yes.
And I think that's so important, right?
Anthony, so is your background, are you Filipino?
I am. Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I was just guessing, but I
Yeah.
love my Filipino family. Yes, mabuhay to all my friends out there. But I think it is very interesting that we as a community, we need to continue to read our history, right?
Mhm.
Because pride isn't this one kind of note kind of thing that it is today,
Right.
with June. Pride is every single day, and pride is fighting to have the audacity to tell your own stories. Just quickly, one person from this book that inspires me is someone named William Dorsey Swan, the first
Right.
American drag queen. And he was enslaved and he was freed, but he had these drag balls and these cakewalks and was very fierce and extremely gender nonconforming and proudly so. Went to prison multiple times for that. But I think that he is a trailblazer, and I hope that we don't forget where American drag culture comes from, and that is from a freed slave named William Dorsey Swan.
And you can find out all about William and so many more and lots of how-tos. The book right here is called Pretty Boys. It is out June 22nd. And be sure to check out David's website, Very Good Light, and also these fabulous products, Good Light right here. I'm a big fan of the Moon Glow Milky Toning Lotion.
Ooh, I can tell you're like gleaming like the full moon.
um, but David, thank you so much. Congratulations. I can't wait to see you in person soon. Maybe at the next GLAAD Awards, because we're going to be back in person 2022. But I'll see you before
Oh my gosh. And then Pride's also in person. So,
then.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Happy
yeah.
Pride. And yeah, just a reminder, everyone, go get this book. It's out June 22nd. Yay.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.